lecture too. You're quoting Baudrillard, talking about history, and history being a Western export. That for us, in reality, history is over. That it's more often in a loop, that the continuity of history is shattered. So when I read that section, him saying history is over, first it reminded me of Fukuyama saying history is over. Says that history is over when he made that claim in the 90s. Like he was saying it, from what I understand, that he was saying it as we came to a point, like to a culmination. So it's being more of a positive thing. Whereas Baudrillard saying history is over is that we're cut off from history. My question is, and more so if you could explain Baudrillard's perspective on history being over for us in the West.
The idea of history is the idea that history was invented by the Westerners. So in that particular sense, every time when you mention a word, whether it's history, philosophy, or let's say zoology, in your mind, you think it's a legitimate word out of the dictionary, out of our accumulation of knowledge. It's a human wisdom. It's a part of the human civilization and the cultural achievement. So this discipline is a part of our human intellectual functions, and there is no question. But then if you look at it, when you say zoology, what do you mean by that? You may say, well, as a human, as a zoologist, scientist of animals, so a human scientist studies animals. We're trying to study animals not because we wish to benefit the animals. So we wish find a way to make the animals live better, longer life, or make them happier. We study animals because we think by studying animals and the experience and the knowledge we accumulated from our studies, that it can benefit our own life as humans. We study animals because we want to live longer and better. That's pretty clear, right?
Yes.
So when you do that way, what you're saying is that I am superior in the universe as a human being. I am the master of this world. I am the subject. Animal is the object. So I have this dominant position to study animals. That's pretty clear. And we have a similar view about everything. Use the term of zoology that makes things easier to look at. If you say sinology, Orientalism, so what those terms mean? When we say sinology, if you read a little bit, pay a little attention, that's a discipline that studies China. The question is to study China. Do we study China as we study part of our own histories? We study Greek? We have to really think about that. If you really look at it, in this sense, sinology is no different from zoology. Same thing with Orientalism. You probably all heard that word, but I don't think you really understand what that means. You might just think Orientalism must be something about Chinese or Japanese. Orientalism defines basically, in a kind of loose view, you will see anybody is not white who is concluded in the Oriental sector of the planet, stretched all the way from east. Now, east is another problem. So what is east? You have Near East, Middle East, Far East. If you look at nearby, the center of the West, whoever that is, Germans, English, that can be defined clearly from time to time. But the East becomes something very vague. So anytime you look at it from the view of England, the view of France, the view of whoever, the view of America, and you look at it beyond your vision, that's all going to be East. But the East is such a vast time and space, and we can't just continue to say East, so now we're looking at it from a Eurocentric view. Anything that is close to Europe, that's called the Near East. And then further away, it's Middle East, and then Far East. So essentially, that is all called Orientalism. And you say Orientalism, that's equivalent to sinology. And sinology equivalent to zoology. So as a white, we are the speaking subject at this moment. And we're going to study anything that is not subject. We give them different terms and names, but we are the anthropocentric figure here. We do the study. If you look at it this way, you know that's true when we say history. So what are we talking about? We're saying, in our view, what is history? Of course, we go into detail. We say the history of China, the history of India. Oh, that is different. So when we say history is over, what are we saying? From Fukuyama's view, under the system of democracy and free marketing, human beings have reached this level, summit, that history is over. That is to say, we're at the best spot. Everything has to be just like the movement. Then we're good. I think Fukuyama, now he's saying that was not quite correct. Obviously, it was not, because after he made that comments, the economy was collapsed. And that's just like you said, that was a Potsdam term. Baudrillard made this comment a few decades ago, and he was saying that it is pure concept that history is over because that was never true. Maybe it was true sometimes after Renaissance or before Renaissance, but as soon as we enter the modernity, history was over because history became doubled. That's what he called simulation. History has been simulated. Everything becomes simulacrum. So essentially, the question here is not Baudrillard's term is negative or Fukuyama's term is positive. The issue here is that we have a Western, Euro-American centric view of history. And everything we make a statement based on that view.